It is not crested. Let's talk about China for a little bit then.
Yeah.
Okay. So this goes to supremacy. So, all the way back at the beginning, we started with the premises of the U.S. military was defeated on COVID and it was defeated in Afghanistan. And it was defeated in Afghanistan. It was defeated with a massive head start, 2 trillion in 20 years and, all this stuff. Against China, it's not fighting just like random guys with AKs. Okay. It's fighting a peer competitor. And the thing is that the U.S. spends so inefficiently, just like the $300 million bus lanes, it's spending all this money on, there's various disasters that have been publicly reported. There's the F-35, there's the Zumwalt, there's the Ford class carrier, there's the littoral combat ship, Navy, the Air Force, the Army. There's cost overruns and basically everything. Right. It's like literally how they do it, right?
When you don't earn it, it's easy to misallocate it. And I'd like you to speak to how China is overcoming that problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so the thing is that China's still in their arc up as a civilization. Civilizations, like humans, kind of have a life cycle when there's an arc up and an arc down. And it's been so easy for America for so long. Everybody assumes that nobody's ever known a world in America where America really looked like it was going to lose. I should say nobody ever. Maybe in the 70s, there were some moments or whatever, like post Nixon resigning and whatnot. But for a while, for 30 something years, it does not look like America really was losing. Even 9/11, it was not something where you thought it was going to be invaded or defeated or something like that. But everybody in China has for 40 years, they've gone from literally rice farming or something to a modern civilization. They are like the March Lords in their own way, right? Because it was nothing. And then they've got something, I don't know if you've seen Shenzhen before and after or Shanghai before and after. It is like a tree growing out of the ground, except the tree is skyscrapers. Okay. And that's everywhere in China and everybody's seen that. And the progress is so massive in their lifetime that they have a huge head of steam in front of them and behind them, right? Now, the normal kinds of arguments are things like, China's going to, get old before it gets rich, or their Navy sucks. These are Peter Zeihan makes these kind of arguments. And I have nothing against Zeihan, the person, and I agree with him on a few things, like that the US will withdraw and that shale oil will probably be important. But I very much disagree that China is going to fall off. I think on these points of demographics, first is robotics over demographics. Instagram beat Kodak with 1/1000th the number of people, and the Great Resignation is going to lead to the Great Automation. We're already, look at Boston Dynamics, look at Vicarious.com, the robot dogs are out there. All this stuff is happening. You're seeing robot dogs on patrol finally. It's the real future is happening. And second, on demographics themselves, the Chinese have just flipped all kinds of switches. It's now the 3-child policy.
Three-child policy is now 3-child minimum? Is that a policy?
They want you to have 3 children.
They want you, so is it a minimum or what do they do?
It's not a minimum. It's not a minimum yet. But here's the thing. The concept of nudge, like Cass Sunstein?
No.
Nudge, it's hey, recycle your stuff. It's like that UN, poster type thing.
Okay.
It's the ideology of Davos man, hey, wear a mask, this kind of stuff, right?
Kind of like we just saw plastered all over that wall in the Middle East.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's right. Yeah. That's right. So nudge is kind of, and there's some good to it in the sense that the idea is you're not pushing people to do something, but you are, suggesting it, incentivizing it on the margins, nudging them, to have better behaviors. There's a good aspect to it. Here's the thing. The Chinese state is completely willing to go past nudge and to shove. Okay. And with the social credit system that they've put in place, but you add it all up, it's as I said, 3-child policy, it's the sissy men thing. It is, they killed $1 trillion after school education industry that was resulting in Red Queen like stuff where parents felt they had to keep up with the Jones, the neighbors, to educate their children beyond the other children. So they spend $1,000, $2,000 spending all this time in these after school things. So basically killed this huge after school education industry. They have banned basically destroyed the video game industry, where it's like you can only play video games like 3 hours a week. They have what other stuff they've done? They have they've done a ton of stuff with the military, where they've refashioned it so it all just folds up to Xi Jinping. Various purges of they call it Tigers and Flies, or that was the original anti-corruption campaign. That's what it was called, Tigers and Flies. It's brilliantly titled because everybody who got capped by it, everybody who got jailed or prosecuted, you could say that they were corrupt. Were they actually corrupt, or were they just enemies of the boss? Who knows?
Right.
I can't adjudicate that. Yeah. Maybe some of both, right? Because it's like if everybody there's leadership is partially corrupt, then
statism is inherently corrupt, so it's probably the latter.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Chinese corruption model, it's a weird kind of thing where they actually have executed. So there's a kind of corruption where it grinds the thing to a halt. There's another kind of corruption where these guys, who are governors of a state or whatever, take a slice off the top, but they also do grow the state. Like the economic growth is real, right? It's not just numbers or stats. It's not just, Soviet style stats where it's all actually garbage. The iPhones in our hands work, like the physical stuff does work. You might argue with the quality, but it's there. Mm-hmm. By the way, do you know how they do promotions and stuff? Most people don't know this.
I don't.
So there's a good video on this by Eric X. Lee. And the thing about this is, like, one of the dumber comments people make is you point out, they're like, oh, you're a China shill. Like, to understand how they operate is necessary to understand how they became powerful. And if you choose to engage, how one could beat them. But it's like not understanding the org chart of Microsoft or whatever when you're competing against them. You kind of need to know this stuff, right?
Yeah. So this is Sun Tzu, right? To know oneself is to win a battle, but to know oneself and thy enemy is to be undefeated, something to that effect.
Exactly. So like this stuff where it's like, oh my God, you can't believe you're talking about. So this, I'm going to give this link. So Eric X. Lee, A Tale of Two Political Systems. This is well done in English. Now, look, there's aspects of it that that don't hold up 8 years later. For example, he's like, we rotate every 5 years. Actually, Xi has basically declared himself president for life. This was just before the transition, from internationalist capitalism over. And he also, one of the things that's interesting is the Chinese state is heavily invested in the illusion that there's a continuity from Mao to Deng to the present day.
Right.
And there's not. That was basically a coup. Like the Gang of Four, including Mao's wife, were basically jailed by Deng. Okay. And that was like Mao did not name Deng his heir apparent. He named Hua Guofeng, if I remember correctly. And so he was basically sidelined by Deng, right? And that's why China works. Thank God. Or well, for the Chinese at least. You can argue, this is one of those things that's complicated, right? It is hard to say that 1 billion Chinese people should be poor and starving and subject to communism and killed and so on, like they were under Mao, right? Mm-hmm. Or, like people still are in North Korea or under Castro and so on and so forth, right? So in that sense, I say, thank God, because Deng, like as a humanist, Deng improved humanity, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people are innocent people, good people, great people who have created